Hello, I'm going to talk today about depression and recovery. I am in long-term recovery and I also suffer from depression. I am on medication. There are a lot of misconceptions about addiction as well as depression. Addiction is truthfully a disease. A lot of things that cause addiction in substances such as drugs or alcohol have ingredients in them that block dopamine receptors. Dopamine receptors are what allow us to function as quote unquote normal people. Certain drugs, such as cocaine, can deplete your dopamine to such a level that depression can be it can get very serious and reach points where the dopamine gets low enough it cannot be replenished. People think that you just get over things once you quit. Sometimes the body, because of the damage you've done, cannot replenish your body with dopamine. It's hard recognizing depression when you have nothing to go by. You think that you're just going through a tough time. I myself attempted suicide twice, once at 19 when I got really drunk and climbed the top of the building and fell off of it. I awoke in the hospital on 4-point restraint. An intern came in and I saw bruises on his arms. And my first thing was, in a sarcastic way, was, "What'd you do? Get into a fight with your girlfriend?" He goes, "No, that's from you. You were asking to die. I didn't want to let that happen." At the time I thought I was just a little bit too messed up. I was sad, but at the time, but it had nothing to do with wanting to die. Fast forward about 10 years ago, I got myself into a situation where I didn't have a place to stay. Trying to find a roof to put over my head seemed like an impossibility. So again, I attempted suicide, and this time I was more aware. I was not quite as messed up. I had actually been recovering 3 years into my 2-3 years into my recovery, and they took me into Detroit receiving. An amazing thing kind of happened there, because I went into Detroit receiving, and there were all kinds of characters that they had on 4-point restraint in this room. And I thought, at the time I thought, I don't belong here. though I was extremely not in a good place. Well, one of the patients who was on 4-point restraint somehow was able to pick the locks on his restraints, and he got out of his gurney, was walking around, and clearly this guy was not violent. Lord knows why he was there, and he was just saying hi to everyone. The nurse came in, and she was shocked that he was in 4-point restraint, out of his 4-point restraint, and she asked him to get back on the gurney. She put him back on there. She locked it. At this point, I was actually more enthralled with what was going on with this guy than thinking about what was going on with me. Well, she was gone for a little bit, and all of a sudden, the guy got out again. And they came back in, and I don't know if they locked it a different way, but he was unable to get himself free again. And shortly thereafter, I spent a couple of weeks on a floor in a mental hospital. I was locked up. They offered me medication. I didn't take it, but slowly but surely, I realized that I had to get out of the toxic situation I had been in before I had become homeless. My family, I didn't have the greatest relationship with them, but it was being repaired early in my recovery, and they thought that I was on something else. And initially, I wasn't going to be let back into the house. Well, they became aware I had no place to go. So they let me come back in the house, and the condition was that I get back to work and get moved out. Well, it was a lot of pressure, and not being on medication and being depressed. Somehow I fought through it. I got myself a job, and my money was held by my mom, so that when I got ready to move, I had money to live on. And this went on for a while, and I finally, I tried to find a place. I didn't have any credit, and I found a place where I didn't need credit, and I moved in there. And it was an efficiency. They had 2 apartments, but the efficiencies were really small. It took me about 2 years of being in the apartment. Hadn't really laughed in a long time. Things have been so hard, but I had stuck to the grindstone and just did it. Well, right around Christmas time, there was a song by Patsy Mahoma most people might recognize. Grandma got run over by a reindeer. Well, the person that I had allowed that, I let them into my life, and I allowed this to go on. Her name was Rhonda. Well, for some reason, and it's probably a brain mechanism, it switched the words to Rhonda got run over by reindeer. Now, I'm not a violent person, never wanted to own a gun, but I was hurt by her. And so that image made me laugh. And I was at work, and people are like going, "Oh my God, Rich laughed." And that started me to feeling better, because I started to laugh at things and get healthy, and to a certain degree. But I was not on medication yet. That would take another 20 years. But this is the first chapter into what was my path from the beginning of my recovery to the point where, from going homeless and being locked up on a mental ward for a couple of weeks, I went to actually laughing. One other story, well, actually two other stories while I was there. There was a older lady who kept away from everyone else, and she was very normal in many ways, and I would try to talk to her, and she wanted nothing to do with anyone. Come to find out, her husband had had a blood transfusion and contracted AIDS, and they had had intercourse, and she contracted it too, and she did not want any human contact, and that made me very sad. Another story was one of my favorite movies, It's a Wonderful Life. First day I was in there, I was kind of just trying to level myself off and figure out where I was going, and there was a Reader's Digest with a story behind It's a Wonderful Life. And being a person, being on a ward where people had possibly tried to hurt themselves, I found that intriguing. I read the story, and it had been a story a movie I had loved from the time. I had never seen it until I decided to quit drinking, and it touched me in such a way. I consider it a very favorite movie of mine. My next video will concentrate on the early times after my recovery and meeting one of my inspirations, Bob Probert. And that to me was a catalyzing moment for me in my life, and I will reflect upon that and my father's death, which may have contributed to me becoming an alcoholic. But this is the first video, and I wanted to do this so I can share with people part of my story. It's probably not going to all come in order, but this will give people an idea of the type of person I am, and how my life changed. I will be doing stories about my youth growing up, things that affected me, and kind of connections to me throughout my life that have kind of come back. So I appreciate anyone who takes a look at this video and maybe draws some inspiration and understands that recovery is a gift, and it's something that you have to work at, and you can't get lazy about, because then things become sticky and then you fall into some old patterns. Either way, I'd love to share this with you, and please, if you're recovering, there is always light at the end of your darkest moments. Ending your life or taking a drink or drug is not the way.